Hello, I want to talk about Israel's insanity, but first a little flashback in light of the LAX shooter to something I was saying about the TSA and terrorism. But there are hundreds of people all crammed together trying to get through these stupid machines, and if a terrorist were just to bomb the TSA line, they'd kill hundreds of Americans without even having to buy a ticket or get on the plane. They wouldn't even have to be there. It wouldn't even have to be a suicide bomb. Then what are they going to do? Have another line to scan you for bombs and stuff before the TSA line? Because then they could just bomb that line. There's really no way around it. If you bunch up hundreds of people together in a place where you know they're going to be, and you know it's all going to be Americans mainly if it's at an American airport, there's absolutely no way to stop the terrorists from bombing the lines at the TSA and taking out hundreds of Americans. Now it turns out the case, and I know the guy's name, but I'm not going to say the guy's name because I don't like bringing shooters fame, but the person that shot at TSA, two TSA workers, killed one of them, got the other one in the leg, and injured two others, wasn't trying to just kill Americans at random. He specifically was targeting the TSA. Two stories came out about that he was just an anti-government nut and wanted to shoot authority figures or something. The other was that he was a former TSA employee himself, so it could have been a personal disgruntled work dispute type of thing. Anyway, don't care. Shouldn't shoot people, even the TSA. Although I can't say I was very unhappy about hearing a TSA worker get killed, because I really wasn't. I know he's a person, he has a family and everything, but you know what? When you're just going to be a government thug like that and feel people's balls and be part of the police state, you forfeit my sympathy. I have sympathy for the family, but I don't have sympathy for a TSA worker. I think they're scum. They're just next to like policemen. I don't like cops. Anyway, talking about authoritarian asshats, Yahoo has announced that he wants to destroy and demolish 15,000 more homes in East Jerusalem. Those are all Palestinian homes, by the way. Of course, they're going to replace them with the chosen race of God, the Jewish race, because Netanyahu is a racist Jew, and most of Israel is comprised of a bunch of racist, fascist, insane, Nazi-like ethnic cleansers. They bombed Syria again, and what does the U.S. do? They gave Israel another extra $500 million. Already gave them $3 billion at the beginning of the year in cash, interest-free. That's a grant, it's not aid. And now they're going to give them another $488 million more. As long as we keep paying them money and sending them aid, they're never going to change their behavior. Israel has no reason to end the settlements. They have no reason to end their military occupation. They have no reason not to quit building Jewish-only colonies into Palestine. They have no reason not to bomb Syria, because there's no retaliation, there's no consequence for it. And the reason Syria can't attack Israel is because if they do, the United States will attack Syria, and everybody knows that. Now, why did Israel go, fly over, bomb a facility, and fly back? Why now? Because they're trying as hard as they can to disrupt the peace process between Iran and the United States. And Netanyahu's having a fit. He did this last time when he had a fit and couldn't get his way. He goes and he attacks the Palestinians. So who can we pick on? Who can we bully? I know, I'll just go butcher a bunch of Palestinians. Now he's going to demolish a bunch of homes. It's his way of saying, F you Obama, I can do whatever I want, AIPAC controls Congress. And they control Obama too. He's always grabbed his ankles for Israel. But the thing is, there are a lot of people in Israel who still hate Obama. Why? Because they think he's black and they hate black people because it's a racist state. You should see the video that Max Blumenthal made. Someone else, I forgot his partner's name, but they made this great film about the African migrants in Israel. And all these racist Jews saying that they ought to send them back to Africa and this and that, and they won't give them work permits. This is the state, mind you, not just regular civilian racists. This is state-ordained racism, refusing to give them work permits and not allowing them to earn their own living, trying to force them out of Israel because, after all, they're not part of the chosen race of God, and Israel has to have a Jewish majority demographic because it's a racist state. in concept and in actuality. And of course there are Israelis that oppose that. There are Jewish people that live there that aren't racist, but the state itself is racist. There are plenty of Germans who weren't Nazis too. In fact, the majority of them were. But guess who was in charge? And the same thing in Israel, except the majority of them actually are racist too. And they also think he's a secret Muslim, just like a lot of the T-tards. And I like the Tea Party, the original one, the anti-war one, the one that was investigating 9/11, the one that wanted to end the Fed, wanted fiscal responsibility and to stop imperialism. But the T.O. Khan Party, that's been taken over by a bunch of hacks, from like Glenn Beck to Palin and Rand Paul, they basically just hate Obama because he's a Democrat. And some of them hate Obama because he's half black and they can't stand it. Of course, they're not going to say that. They'll say some other reason. But they went with the secret Muslim no birth certificate stuff because they wanted to hate Obama, but they couldn't really hate his policies because they were the exact same policies they've been supporting under George Bush. And so that's what they landed on. So Israel's getting another $500 million from the United States while the U.S. is simultaneously cutting food stamps for poor people. It's ironic. They subsidize farms and ranches to throw away food, and then they pay for food stamps at the same time. So the U.S. continues to support a racist, fascist, apartheid state in Israel. They're worse than apartheid. They're ethnically cleansing. They're colonizers. They are racial colonizers. Manifest destiny level, purity, race of God, BS. And that's what the U.S. supports wholeheartedly. Don't even mention the house demolitions of the occupation. And there are other best friend there, Saudi Arabia. A place that won't allow women to drive cars. Where you can be stoned to death for just about everything, showing your legs. But if you're a female, this is. If you're female, they're like property. They don't have any rights. Both countries, Israel and Saudi Arabia, have sex slaves. They lure people in, promising you can be a nanny or housekeeper or whatever, and they literally lock them up, barred window type rooms, and use their bodies for sex for their clients. They're not even paying them. It's not even prostitution. It's just straight up sex slavery. Slavery. They're worse than Halliburton. They're worse than DynCorp. They both got caught raping prisoners and raping their own soldiers, their own mercenaries, whatever. It's a sick world, and it's run by psychopaths, and it's allowed and enabled by a bunch of apathetic, go-nowhere, nothing losers. If you're not going to fight the system because it doesn't look easy, then you get what you deserve. You're getting what you've created. We stopped an attack on Syria because everybody went apeshit, calling the Congress, telling them not to do it. Why couldn't we have that type of activism when they were bailing out Wall Street for $16 trillion, plus another $16 trillion from the Federal Reserve? Why don't we have that action now to curb the NSA spying? Patrick Leahy has a bill, and screw Feinstein's bill. That's just legalizes spying. Leahy has a bill. It's worth supporting, but are people on the phone? No. I guess because it's a little bit more complex than, let's go bomb someone or not. But we need that kind of activism to stay. I was elated that a lot of these people that are like, don't vote, it doesn't matter, so just forfeit instead of trying and losing, just forfeit. Quit, do nothing, don't vote, you're just buying into the system. Those people kind of changed their minds when a whole bunch of people called Congress and the attack on Syria was off, because they realized, oh, getting off your ass and doing something directly, and I don't mean being like the Occupy movement, walking around in the park banging drums and arguing with each other, but actually going to the people in charge and having a conversation with them en masse, the way AIPAC does. You don't have to purchase them. They are scared. They are careerists. They care about their career more than anything, and voting does matter because you can vote them out of there. Otherwise, they wouldn't bother. They listen to you if you call them, but nobody's calling them. Which is why I'd like to make my own megaphone in reverse type software to pick an issue. My issue this week is the NSA. We should be supporting the bill to curb the section of the Patriot Act that they're saying allows them to do all this, even though it doesn't. The freaking author of the Patriot Act even admits that. But we need to strip these powers away from the NSA. They're a bunch of voyeuristic losers. They're gathering all this information. It has nothing to do with fighting terrorism or preventing any kind of criminal syndicate. They are a criminal syndicate themselves. They're just getting your metadata. They're spying on Google. They're spying on Yahoo. They're spying on you. Why? For their own commercial interests and to blackmail politicians and businessmen. That's exactly what it's for. And they share everything with the Israelis. Why? Because that's the boss. That's who started this crap. They've been tapping America's phones for decades. And now they've got phones and computers. NSA is a bitch to the client state of Israel. It's the tail wagging the dog, so to speak. We've got all the guns and power and a stronger economy and everything else. You just tell Israel to go fuck itself. So kill the NSA. And following that, the TSA. And if they want to get a war with Iran or anything like that, we've got to kill that too. But you've got to pick up the phone and call your congressman and tell other people to do it and say what you want about these issues. I want a bill curbing the power of the NSA. I want a bill getting rid of the TSA. Go back to how it was. We had metal detectors and things and it was fine. We had 9/11, whatever. That's not... That whole story is bull. And the TSA doesn't even prevent that kind of thing anyway. And all the tests they've done, people want to get weapons through, they still can. And guess what? If nobody has any weapons, 4 or 5 guys that know how to fight can take out the rest of the plane on their own anyway. Assuming there's no other fighters on the plane, which is pretty good odds. It's ridiculous. We've got to cut foreign aid to Israel. Every day. In fact, this is the issue, this is the meta issue. The NSA thing is this week because there's actually a bill in Congress already about this. But every day, you need to call your congressman. Every day. All of you, I don't know, 2,000 of you or so watch this video, and I don't know how many people you'll talk to. But I mean, even that small number is enough because nobody ever calls or does anything, trust me. Call them nonstop and say, cut all aid to Israel. And even if you're not American, get an American friend, or hell, just call up and say, yeah, I'm from Texas or whatever, and tell them to cut aid from Israel. Do it. Peace. They're relying on our apathy. If you want to change things, change things. No one's going to do it for you. You've got to be the change you want to see in the world. And if you all do that, it will happen.